focus on the one where you can spend $10,000 and make 200 grand. I have days when I literally cry. I was giving myself a hard time. I'm a Deca-Millionaire. I have a family. I have friends. What's wrong? I see everything like a motherboard. Life is ones and zeros. Everything in life is math. You either want the product or you don't. Just don't waste my time. If I have a problem in life, I either fix it or I tolerate it. I never complain. The secret to living is giving. Does it make the world a better place? Do I like the people? Can I make money?
Welcome to The Business Game, the show that breaks business down into real levels, from $0 to $200 billion, so founders can see exactly where they are and what comes next. Today's guest is playing at level 6, which sits in the $50 to $150 million bracket, the architect stage. At this level, governance, data, finance, and infrastructure can't be informal anymore. They must be engineered. The challenges? Enterprise systems, compliance, cross-functional complexity, and financial sophistication. The goal? Architect a resilient, data-driven organisation built for serious scale.
Hello and welcome to The Business Game. I'm Steve Plummer.
And I'm Kalina Stano.
And today we're joined by Robert Indries, Managing Partner of Elkridge Advisors. Robert has generated more than $500 million in business value, built and scaled a portfolio of businesses, delivered hundreds of projects across 19 industries, and successfully exited an AI venture through an 8-figure acquisition.
Today, Robert is playing at level 6, where governance, enterprise systems, compliance, and organizational infrastructure become critical to continued growth. Right now, he's navigating the challenge of scaling systems across dozens of acquisitions each year while leading teams across multiple countries.
Let's dive in with Robert Indries. Robert, welcome to the show. Where are you joining us from?
Thank you so much. I'm in Europe right now, just enjoying amazing continental weather.
All right.
Wonderful.
Fantastic. Well, it's a warm welcome to you. So we actually spoke to Patrick Rogers from Elkridge last year. So we're so excited to have you on in this new format of The Business Game. So can you tell us about yourself, about Elkridge Advisors, what they do, and about your origin story to get us to where you are today?
Of course. So I was originally born in a very small town in Transylvania, 2,000 people, total in the town, and we were on a farm, just raising cattle, feeding chicken, working the land, stuff like that. And then I quickly realized, that I keep wanting to do more. I was lucky when I was 10, I landed on a book called The Evolution of Technology. And I fell in love with it. It's like, oh my gosh, the cover of the book was a dissected vacuum cleaner. And I could see the engine, how the air flows, everything. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And I read it cover to cover, and I was like 10, right? And it was a huge book. And I really liked it. And I decided I want to be an engineer. And luckily I became one, right? So I went into a very technical high school. We had, I think we had 9 hours of computer sciences, 6 hours of math, 3 hours of physics, like crazy. It was just like all sciences. Really liked it. Then, I went into college, the University for Engineering. And so I just kept doing that. My first venture was an engineering company. I still own it to this day. I don't own it anymore. Sorry, I'm running it, but I sold it. So that's one of my exits. So I sold that for 7 figures, but the person buying it wanted me to stay on. So I still have a minority share, and I'm still running day-to-day ops. By running day-to-day ops, I mean I spend maybe 1 hour a week, checking in on stuff, making sure things are going well. So after that, I realized that I can use my engineering brain to engineer systems within companies.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing that. So for me, I'm also a little bit autistic. So the entire world for me is zeros and ones. There is no gray area. If you want, to have a gray area, go be an artist or something, But in the world of business, there is no gray area. You either did it or you did not. You either showed up or you have not. The task is done or it is not. There is no gray area. You cannot half do a project, right? Because the project is either completed or it's not completed. If you've half done it, you haven't done it. It's a zero, right?
Yeah.
And so I had this conversation many times with many people, that it just simply does not work like that. If you get a client, and he ordered a pair of shoes, he won't be happy if you send him one shoe. It's not gonna, you either send him the 2 shoes that he ordered or you did not. You either sent it on time or you did not, etc., etc. It's all zeros and ones, right? You can make up for a zero, no problem. I'm not saying that, right? Like, or you can say that we didn't deliver the project because the client was a pain. The end result is still the same. We didn't deliver the project. How did we manage that painful client? That's the question. That's the intrinsic question. Yes. So I see everything like a motherboard. Everything is, voltages and circuits, right? If you don't have, we had great teachers. I was very lucky in uni, and they told us design of circuit board design is not complete until you have redundancy on every circuit, right? Because if you imagine a circuit board and there is no redundancy, there's just one line, one piece of everything going anywhere. If you have a crack, like literally you take a knife and you crack one of those lines, the entire thing falls apart because there is no redundancy. You can literally just break a line and it's done. The entire system collapses. So in the world of acquisitions, we call that key person dependency or key system dependency, depends what it is. But you remove that one person, the previous owner or the CEO or the, one back office receptionist that's actually doing all of the heavy lifting for the entire company that no one talks about, right? You remove that one person and then everything just collapses. No one has any idea what schedule they have tomorrow and, where do they need to go, who do they need to speak to, what, and so on.
Yeah.
So I realized I can use engineering, right, to engineer great businesses. And then I started doing about 1 to 3 a year, for like the better part of a decade. And then that's how I got to 11 businesses in parallel. At one point, I was, at the peak of my own portfolio.
Yeah.
And then I started having exits because I realized that, you can also exit companies at one point. So, well, why not, trade in the next 5 years of my time to just get that money right now, right? And then I can do something else, with my time. And so I started doing that. And then we started doing it at scale for, within Elkridge. Patrick, actually, I was on his podcast many years ago, I think like 4 years ago. And, he grilled me on how to run companies effectively. And he was in shock at my answer. Like, he was like, Robert, no one does this. I'm like, I know, that's why everyone's poor. Statistically speaking, just look, 96% of businesses never pass 7 figures in their lifetime. It doesn't matter how long they are, 96% never become, and here, the Instagram fame is like, hey, start a business so you become financially independent. Yes, good luck with that. Yeah. Statistically speaking, you never will, so that's the thing, and that's the reality. It's a very harsh reality, and people are not fed this harsh reality. They're fed the, oh, I'm gonna quit my job, do a business because I have higher chances of becoming wealthy. False. 90% of wealth is doctors, lawyers, engineers, accountants, blah blah blah. Like, just look at the 90-something% of wealth. It was not built in business; it was built in careers. So. I had that conversation with Patrick. He was very, let's say, pleasantly surprised by the conversation. Then we stayed online for a long time after the podcast. I think he might have even missed a meeting or something, but we just kept talking for a while. And then we stayed in touch. We did small levels of business together. And at one point he said, Robert, I want to start Elkridge. I want to combine M&A with business operations, because no one's doing that. Only private equity does that, but no one at the smaller market, right? No one buys businesses and then manages them as well. Most M&A firms, they're brokers. They buy and sell. They're very transactional, right? That's all they do. But in our case, we buy to keep, right? So we buy a business. Every time we buy a business, we basically add more to our portfolio, but it's not just ours, right? We have a fund, and so we have investors that come invest with us, and then we have our own money, and then we leverage also with banks. We have a lot of connections, but long story short, we just keep acquiring and acquiring, and then we add that within a stack of ever-growing companies within our portfolio that we manage for the investors, right, on their behalf. And then we also have the trusts and the tax stuff. So I don't know if you are aware, in trusts are like one of the best tax saving mechanisms, and they're perfectly legal, by the way. I want to make it very clear. There might be illegal ways of doing it. Don't do that. You don't want to go to jail, but there are legal ways to do trusts that are perfectly, they're literally in the tax code. Like, you literally have trusts in sections within the tax code, and it's explained. And so as long as you fit within the tax code, you're fine. But then we basically, one of the rules of trust is that if you're the beneficiary of a trust, you cannot also be the manager. There has to be at least two entities, and in some cases you have three entities, because you have like a controller, like someone checking on all three, right? But basically, you have the beneficiary is you, the person that is about to collect $10 million in an exit, and the manager needs to be someone else, right? So in that case, we are the managers of the trusts, and then 10 million just lands into that trust, and then we have a fiduciary responsibility towards the trust to invest the money properly, right, into stocks, real estate, other ventures, etc., etc. And so that's also something, and we do a plethora of things, but basically, Patrick invited me to Elkridge. He's the original founder, because he said he wants someone on the operational side. Patrick is an amazing, very ethical person. He loves talking to people and having relationships, having partnerships and so on. But he let's use the term dislikes the nitty gritty, the sheets, someone needs to follow up on X and blah blah. Like all of that needs to get done. And so we have a very huge appreciation for each other. I do not want his job, not even for a bit. Like, he talks to so many people every day. I have this one conversation. I need to take a nap. I'm an introvert. Right? I cannot do this. All right. But then he can just do this all day. Like, he goes to conferences, he meets people live, for lunches and so on. And I love him for it. Like, he does all of that. And then he makes me speak to no one, like no one even knows I exist until sometimes, they find me on the website and then they ask for a call, but otherwise I'm just very happy, doing my geeky stuff, in the background. So
it sounds like there's a beautiful balance there, a lot of different skills and personalities and so forth. So to be clear, Elkridge Advisors is not bound by borders. You invest across countries and continents. Is that correct?
Correct. People need to understand that the place of their business affects their multiple. So you cannot expect US level multiples, right? If you're in a, like, let's say, whatever, I want to make something up, Taiwan, or, maybe Taiwan is a bad example nowadays, but let's say, you're in, whatever, Nigeria, right? You need to understand that you're less investable. And has nothing to do with you. It's completely racist, let's call it, or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. But we live in a world of business facts. Again, I'm zeros and ones. So banks lend harder in Nigeria. It's more grueling. Like, no one in the US, where we have hundreds of millions to invest, is gonna want to invest there, or statistically speaking, no one's gonna invest, right? Like, when they can invest in fast-growing, stable, secure businesses in the U.S., why would they do that in Nigeria and other countries, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm saying this to say, yes, we do invest in other countries, but people in other countries need to be mindful, of how investable they are. Yeah. If you have a local M&A firm, a local investor, local whatever, they might value you higher, but they might also have less money, to invest. So the end result is basically the same, because they're not going to pay. They can say, oh, yeah, you're valued at 10 million, but I only have 5 to give you, And so in that same vein, maybe we can give you 7. We see that you're valued at 10, but we want a 30% discount because it's in a language we don't speak, in a country we never go to, et cetera, et cetera. So we need a discount to basically everything is risk. So if anyone listening wants to understand how M&A work, the riskier money making is, the less you get for it. So every business you assume will make money, as it has up until now, right? Because you're buying EBITDA. You're buying, let's say, $1 million in EBITDA, you get $5 million for it. Let's say, I'm oversimplifying it.
Yeah.
But if you have key person dependence, if you're in the middle of nowhere on an island no one heard of, if your clients, like let's say one of your clients is 60% of your revenue. I don't know. This is like I'm making these up, but if all of these are stacked upon each other, all of a sudden you're not worth 5 million. Maybe you are worth 2.5 on a good day, And so because there's so much risk attached to it, and you need to be very careful. One of the places where we invest in real estate, for example, is Puerto Rico, because it's still an amazing, it's ripe. Like you get huge ROIs, like twice as much as you would get in mainland US. At the same time, Patrick calls it the Wild West of real estate investment, because it's like just an island in the middle of nowhere. It feels like it, And so you're careful, you really need to be very careful as to what you do. But we have connections. And we have literally, part of the team, the core team we have in the US, have family connections there, and they were, I wouldn't say born there, but to a certain extent, large part of their family are there. So because of that, we can literally buy land at, for free.
Wow.
And build resorts and business centers, anything we want to build. Right. So if anyone listening, wants to own a $20 million resort for, half the price, then, they can reach out and we can do something together. So that's how we've gotten together. And that's why we have this dynamic, going on now.
Yeah. Wow. What an incredible story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. I just want to pick your brain for hours on everything that you do. So you've said that one of the biggest breakthroughs in your career came after losing all of your savings in an early venture. I'd love to dive into that a little bit. So what did that experience teach you that still influences the way that you build businesses today?
I think very good question. So I am by almost all definitions a dreamer. I read books, as you can probably see. These are all of my business books, and then we have a completely different library for all the fiction. And so in the end, we have a book nook under, like it's like a U-shaped library, and then under it we have like a bed for 2, 3, 4 people. And so we literally just cuddle up, my wife and I, and read. That's one of the things that brought us together. We were avid readers. And so I like, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, Harry Potter, all of these, like, and I'm just mentioning a few that are very, very common, but then a book I just finished reading was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Highly recommend if anyone wants to, chill. I had a very good conversation and learned a lot of lessons. The Midnight Library is amazing. And Matt Haig in general, like I've read like several of his books, and I can't believe he combines personal development with storytelling so well. Like you can't even tell you're learning, but you are, whilst you're learning from other people's life experiences. It's like the Alchemist from Paulo Coelho. One of the originals I've read, a long time ago. I was like, this was such a good book. And it's tiny, and the author Paulo wrote it in like 3 weeks or something, because it was in his mind for years and years, and he just never had the time. Like the guy, I think, was like in prison at one point or whatever for like it's crazy. But I don't know. He started writing when he was like 40 something, and then just couldn't wait to get this story out. And in like 3 weeks, he wrote it. The fastest I've ever written a book was like 6 months. And it felt like it was taking forever. It was waking up 4 a.m., going to bed at 12, just to get hours of writing in, so I can finish the book.
Oh, wow.
But so coming back, I'm a very big dreamer, and I'm very corny, and so on. I want to believe. I really do. I always want to believe, in the love story and the fantasy and so on. So when I was younger, I started listening to I want to say audiobooks, but they weren't audiobooks back. They were like CDs, programs, that you can listen to. And so I got everything I could from Brian Tracy and from Tony Robbins and from, as many people as I could, basically, whomever was, famous. I believe, Zig Ziglar and so on. How was that guy? Jim Rohn. Yes, I loved his, the way he would speak. He was so funny. Like you could listen to him for hours. And he was so blunt as well. He's like, look, if you're fat, you ate too much. It's like, that's it. I'm sorry. It's just you ate too much. You should eat less. So he was very funny at, telling truths, and I really appreciated him. And I was listening, and one of the rules of life I picked up, I believe, from Tony Robbins, whilst I was listening to those. I was listening to them whilst I was a marathon runner, so I just run for hours and just listen to those. I literally had like the CD players, if you remember those. And you could, it was very motivational, and he was basically saying, just do the work, just add value. I even remember the quote, the secret to living is giving, and so on. And it's just like he just had these things, that he would keep saying over and over, and it would just ingrain in your brain, especially if you're like a late teen, early 20, you're getting it like a sponge, and you take it as biblical lecture at that point. And so I was taking that all in. And so I started my company, or one of my companies, believing that if I add value, people will reciprocate and pay me the fair amount for that value. So we started doing work for people and just did work. I was paying people very well, fair wages and so on. And we would finish projects, and then I would ask people, okay, like, what do you think you should pay for this? Horrible conversations. Horrible. Like, just like incredible. Like, they're like, well, what is this worth? Like $1,000? I'm like, well, 3 people worked on it. Each one of them has a salary of $3,000. So just my direct cost is $9,000. That's without accounting for my own time and not accounting for legal expenses and other tools we have, blah, blah, blah. So my actual hard cost is like $12,000. Right. And then they're like, oh, okay, well, I was expecting to pay that. Right. And so very, very bad conversations, because people almost always undervalue the effort that goes into something, because in their minds, you just build an app or you just build a website or you just, do sales. It's like you had 100 conversation number ones, and then 40 conversation number twos, and then 27 contract negotiations, blah, blah, blah. And then you finally close the deal. Oh, I'm just going to pay you commission. It's just, I don't even have a conversation. If anyone comes to me and expects to not pay me, and so this was the lesson, right? I'm getting ahead of myself, but I basically lost all of my life savings investing in a business by that philosophy. And it just was so bad at one point, I was down to my last $100, and I only had 1 month until rent was due. And because I had $100, I didn't have money for food, so I would just buy one. What was that? A Subway sandwich. One Subway sandwich was $3, and I calculate I could eat once. I was basically doing 1 meal a day. I was so hot at the end of that, like perfect 6-pack. I was just so lean. You cannot imagine how hot I looked. Even I was surprised. Well, something good is still happening here. Like the silver line. So I was basically eating one Subway sandwich a day.
Wow.
And then it's like, even that wasn't enough pain. I cannot explain how not even that made me change my ways. But then at one point during that same month, I was in Mexico at that point because I was living the laptop lifestyle. Obviously, like, why wouldn't I? I was like in Cancun. I didn't know where I was. It was somewhere on the planet. But then I get the call, and on the other side of the line is my aunt, which is my mother's sister, because my mother couldn't speak on the phone because their mother just died, my grandmother, the person that raised me until I was like 10.
Oh, wow.
And here I was thinking, I literally failed them because they invested so much time, so much effort, so much love into raising me, hoping that I would make something of myself one day. And here I am going bankrupt. And I literally cried for like 3 days. And then after that, I said, never again. I will always ask for money up front for everything I do. If you are not willing to pay for my service, you do not deserve my service. That's it. Or you are not ready for my service. There's if you have money, you're not willing to pay, you don't deserve it. If you don't have money, you just need to work with someone else that you can afford. And that is the reality of today, right? And so it's literally, I cannot I have shivers just thinking about that moment. I was so upset with myself that I let my family down. I let my mother's, my father, everyone that loved me, so that I would one day become something. I let everyone down. That's how I was feeling. And then I said, no, I will always ask for money up front from now on, right? And so that's what we do now. We always get paid up front. Whenever I have conversations with people within industry that we operate in, they get paid, after they do work and, whatever. And like, I know that's industry standard. I'm perfectly aware. I'm sorry. You're either going to give me $10,000 right now, or I'm not going to move a finger. It's just like, I'm not going to risk it. Never again I am going to risk that. And if you're not, I don't need to prove myself. That's an advantage, right? I already have my track record. All of my companies already have testimonials, video testimonials, references. I do not need to prove to you that I know how to do what I do. So you either believe, a global business director, telling you that I have made them who they are, or you don't. It's just as simple as that. And if you don't believe them, nothing I can do can believe. You're just looking for a very cheap way, a very low risk way to get what you want. And at that point, we're not good business partners. Why should I invest in your business? I'm gonna take $10,000, put it into my own business. I have perfect ad funnels. I spent that $10,000 on ad funnels. I make close to 200 grand. Why would I put that into growing your stuff? Pay your marketing, pay for your business development. Like we do, like for example, something I started doing a few years ago, we manage businesses for people. We literally go in and say, you know what, I want to retire, but I don't want to sell. You just do this stuff. You handle this stuff. And then, we just do it for them. And that's it. And it's much easier for me than coaching. I stopped doing coaching a while ago because I would have a conversation with someone, say, you need to do this, this, this. And like, yes, okay. And a week later we'd meet, okay, did you do this, this, this? And they're like, oh, well, I didn't have time, or this didn't go as planned, or whatever. I'm like,
That's a zero, right?
Yeah.
No.
yeah, exactly. That's a zero. Yes, exactly. Just let me do it. Instead of paying me to coach you and you not doing it, just pay my team. They will do it for you, and they'll do it faster and better than you are. And so I just transitioned from coaching to done for you. And so we just manage companies for people. And that's what we are doing within Elkridge now. Because before, I wouldn't get to share. I just helped someone exit. They made 38 million euro last year. And I got close to nothing. Or sorry, I got nothing out of that, right? But I did get the service, because they were paying us for the service, to do the systems, the marketing, and so on and so forth. And then I got zero out of the exit. And so when Patrick showed up, not like a knight in shining armor that he is, like, hey, Robert, I have this idea. Let's go into M&A. We'll buy the businesses, we'll take a percentage, and then we'll grow them. And then when we sell, we get the percentage, right? So we make our money when we actually exit. So we are completely aligned in KPIs with our clients, or we call them clients, they're investors, investing their money, because we take a percentage of the company, and then we only make real money when that sells or that gives dividends, one or the other, if we want to keep for long.
Mhm.
And today, Robert, you've got, I guess, an empire almost of 8 businesses that generate 7 figures. So what does that look like? Are they all interconnected? Are they independent? Do you spend half an hour on this one, 3 hours on that one? Talk us through what that looks like.
The long story short on that is that I don't really spend time on them. I only spend time on them like when I think about them. Like I get like an idea, hey, maybe we should do this, maybe we should do that, and then I check in, and we've written a book on it. It's right here on Shackled, the 7 levels of business excellence, and we have a chapter called Inspecting Your Expectations. So you set expectations with everyone, and then you empower them to do what they need to do. But then you just check in every so often. You're like, hey, well, how's the CRM look like? How are finances looking like, and so on. So I typically get a quarterly update. Like how was last quarter and what are we planning for this quarter. And it's like a little presentation in an email. And I literally don't speak to people, and I like them. I don't want to be, I don't want to sound rude. I like all of the people I work with. It's just either way, I need to hop on calls, every day, so the more I minimize it, the more energy I have to do other stuff.
Yeah.
And so, to say it bluntly, I would say I have an engineering company, but I don't own it anymore. So, but let's say I'm managing an engineering company. We have a marketing company that I still own. We have a card game for couples, that's won awards in the UK multiple times. Helping is the world's first truly replayable card game for couples. And again, because I'm corny and I like board games, and so on and so forth, we couldn't find the game with my wife to play, that couples game. We have all of the standards, like, Monopoly, Scrabble, Exploding Kittens, whatever, you would get online, that's well reviewed, but nothing for actual couples. So we just designed one, invented one, and, it's being played by people in like 160 something countries at this point. So we're very happy with that, but that's a card game for couples. Then another thing I have is like sort of like an Airbnb for luggage. It's called Luggage Storage. So started with a couple locations in Manchester that we used like as an MVP to see if it works. It was working. People were using them. It was great. And nowadays we have, I think, over 150 locations and, like 6 countries or something like that, across, I don't know how many dozens of cities. So, as you can tell, the marketing company, the card game for couples, the Airbnb for luggage, like these have nothing to do with one another. And most of my businesses are like that. I just invest, or when I say invest, it's typically time. People come to me and give me percentages of their companies, just to be there and help them grow. But I kid you not, I say no almost all the time, because it's just you need to pick and choose. You really do. The best thing you can do is learn to focus, or one of the best things. And I went into these companies for 3 main reasons, and that's my reasons for investing time all the time. Number 1, does it make the world a better place? So that's my first question. And for example, with the card game for couples, it's obvious. It helps couples have better conversations and connect and be more loving towards one another. That's easy. With the Airbnb for luggage, for example, I'm a tourist many times, at least twice a year. And I always find it such a pain to carry my bags with me, here and there if you city hop and so on. So with that, it's amazing because you just leave it there. And we used it. We were in Barcelona last year, and we literally left it at a location near the Sagrada Familia. We just left it there, and we just went on for like 7 hours without luggage. And when we and it was just like, what, €7? It was nothing, And so it's very, very useful to do. So it does make the world a better place in that sense. You can enjoy, your trip much, much more if you're not carrying, 20 pounds on your back all the time. And then that's number 1. Number 2 is, do I like the people that I am about to engage in business with, because if not, like there's no point, right? If I believe they're scammers or, they're liars or their ego is a big thing. I learned, as I go through life, many people cannot get past their own ego. And I understand it's a vice like any other vice. So do I like the people I'm working with? That's one. That's second. And then the third one is, can I make money? Like, is it worth my time? Because otherwise I can find things that have 1 and 2 and 3, right? And at the end of the day, I have a fiduciary responsibility towards my wife, my children, my family, to take care of them. So if something I'm engaged in that I'm spending hours in is not making money, then at that point it's like a game. It's a hobby. I'm taking time away from my daughter to just play a video game, right? If I'm not making money, that's basically what it is. And so I'm not saying that nonprofits shouldn't be a thing, because they are, but even nonprofits should, pay for their staff, if they have full-time staff or, people that are committed and so on. I perfectly get the state of volunteers. I have pro bono work. 10% of all of my time every year is dedicated as pro bono work. And I, help a lot of entities that I'm engaged with for decades at some point. One of them is actually like about 2 decades old that I'm engaged with, and I keep adding value to. And then, as I learn about nonprofits, that I like, I help them. But that's a specific category in my brain. When I go into business, then it either makes money or it doesn't. It's either 1 or 0, right? So it has to be 1 in all these 3. And that's how I choose, what to do. But the businesses themselves, they have nothing to do with one another.
The Business Game is proud to partner with High Level, the all-in-one CRM and marketing platform built for growing businesses. With CRM funnel, website and course builders, marketing automations, email builders, and so much more, High Level software will drive your customer attention and your profits through the stratosphere. And High Level is fully white label, which means you can brand the platform and mobile app with your logo and company colors and then resell it to your customers for a monthly subscription. Ready to go High Level? Click on the link below to begin your 14-day free trial.
All right, speaking of making money, you just recently exited from an AI venture with an 8-figure buyout. Well done. Congratulations. That's incredible. How did you prepare for that exit?
Okay, so recently, it was a couple years ago. I want to be clear. So this is already almost old news, but it's definitely something that takes you by surprise if you've never done it before, because the moment you learn so much in business and you apply all of your lessons from day one, you're basically preparing for an exit every time you start a new venture from the very first step, because you're thinking of marketing systems that can scale. You're thinking of business systems that can scale. You're thinking of SOPs. You're thinking of hiring decisions that are long-term, not just to fill a patch or fill a current need. And so all of these decisions are being made on a day-to-day. So by the time I had my AI venture, I was already 12 years into entrepreneurship, something like that, right? And we were literally preparing by just doing what we do. And then it wasn't a thing like, let's build this to prepare for an exit. No, let's have, is the marketing, does marketing have an ROI or not? If it does not, let's not run it. Like, why are we spending $100 a lead and making 60? Makes no sense. We're either spending 60 to make 100 if we have a profit margin that covers that, or we're not, right? We're just someone just came to us, which has the largest child-friendly what's it called, like a forest reservation or zoo, like with animals. It's huge. And they want us to handle everything in terms of ops and marketing and so on and so forth. It's very difficult to do on a $15 entry fee. It's so difficult, right? Like, it's just completely different game. How do you scale? When I sell my stuff, it's six figures. One deal for me is six figures. I can pay literally $50,000 in marketing and have a very significant profit after I've sold my service, right? Because I make six figures with every new client, right? And so in that case, I can spend maybe whatever, $7 a client, right? To make money on that. And so it becomes incredibly difficult. The math doesn't work. That's why I literally give almost no attention to the card game for couples. I'm basically letting it grow organically because I find that I am not willing to have a conversation with someone about a $15 product. You either want the product or you don't. Just don't waste my time. Don't ask questions. It's all there. You have reviews, you have a product description, you have everything there. Why are you wasting people's time asking so many questions? Do you not understand the value? Because anyone is worth at least $5 an hour, at least, whatever, right? And in our world, they're like $15, $20, $50 an hour, right? And so you're spending someone's time, to answer emails and calls or whatever, and you're paying them $20 an hour. So if you have just one call for a product, you're already not making any money on it, right? So just build a system that sells it automatically and just let it slide. If we ever want to be what's it called, philanthropic, we will put money into that company, into growing that company, but we are not making money, because I'm not in the game of small margin businesses. We can do it, and I've made that successful, but it's not worth, when you have, I'm sure you guys know the Pareto principle, the 80-20, what you're spending 20% of your time makes 80% of your money. And when you have 8 businesses and they're making so much money, you're like, which one of these do I actually focus on? You're going to focus on the one where you can spend $10,000 and make 200 grand. That's the one you're going to focus on, right? And it's just simple math. Again, it's has nothing to do. I like this business more than the other ones, as in the positive that it can bring to the world. But at the same time, I literally need to see it as a nonprofit because it's that's how I dedicate time to it. I'm helping couples, just have better relationships at this point, right? And I'm not making too much money on it. So that's that. And then coming back to the question, it's like you by default at one point learn or get to a specific standard of business that you're not willing to make compromises on. And so when we have already reached that standard before we had the AI venture. And so when we had the AI venture, everything was just in place. Sure. We sold, we exited that company, we built it for 6 months or something like that. Then we launched, and by the end of month 3, it was sold. Right? It was literally sold. So we didn't have time to prepare. We tell people give yourself at least 1 to 2 years to prepare for an exit. The reason why we say that is because we know their ops are in shambles. We know their marketing is lackluster. We know that no one has any idea what their P&L and balance sheet looks like. You talk to these owners, okay, show me your P&L. It's isn't that what my accountant does? I'm yeah, and you should look at that every month. Yes. You should know what goes in and out, the line item, what was the $70? Oh, that was just coffee. $70 of coffee? How much do you drink? He's like, well, no, I met someone and so on. And did business come out of it? No. Well, then it's a wasted expense. I'm sorry. It's you just spend $5 on a coffee next time. By the way, order it. Don't spend money on gas as well going there. It's these conversations, it's just weird. The amount of inefficiencies in companies, it's staggering. So that's why we tell them, give yourself a year. Don't be rough with yourself, right? You'll need a year to prepare. But we don't prepare. If someone wants to buy Elkridge right now as a boutique M&A firm that does what we do, they have to do almost nothing. They just buy it. There you go. And I only had 6-7 months to do what I do, right? But we have key people in every area. Marketing is being done, funnels are being done, tech is being done, the valuing companies is being done, acquiring them is being, like, everything is being done, right? Patrick was upfront with me like a few weeks ago, because we have a good relationship, and he's like, Robert, please don't take this the wrong way, but I don't know what to do. Like, I have nothing to do. I don't know what to do. It's like, congratulations, now you're an actual business owner. This is what it feels like. Like, you need to give yourself work if you want to do something, but that feeling of I don't actually need to do something, that is where everyone needs to get to at one point. And so that's how we prepare, in quotes. But preparation for us is just day-to-day business at this point.
Yeah. So I'd love to get into how you manage scaling systems across dozens of acquisitions per year. Sounds like a massive challenge, and you don't seem like you stress too much. So how do you navigate that?
Zero.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's yes or no.
Yes.
Yeah, so how do you navigate that?
So one thing I'm going to tell you with the ones and zeros that's funny is life is ones and zeros. Everything in life is math. And I can explain it in calculus. I can easily explain it to anyone. People are gray. They are so gray. It's like, do I do this or do I do that? And like, which one do you want to do more? I want to do both of them equally. Okay, which one are you more competent in? Well, I feel I'm equally competent in both of these. Okay, then do this. And like, well, how did you choose? Easy, you do this. Like, but how did you don't need to worry your little head about it. Just do this. Do this and get back to me in a year. Let me know if you like that. And Robert, what if I don't? I'll go back to you and say, okay, do the other thing now. If you're literally at odds, like it's equal. Two decisions are completely equal. Just gut feeling, just do whatever you want to do, because at that point, you have crunched all of the numbers. And it comes down as 1 and 1. Just do the 1. Yeah. As long as you do a 1, you will never regret life. Guys, anyone listening, please, just do ones your entire life. Do I like this person or do I not like them? If I don't like them, just get them out of your life. If I do like them, keep them in your life. Yeah. Or if you want to like them because they're like your mother, or whatever, then find a way to make it 1, or something. I don't know. Just like do something. Stop having the conversation that, pisses them off. It's so easy. Just don't do it anymore. Just do something else, right? They're not going to change. They literally made you. They quite literally birthed you. So you're not gonna run their life. As far as they're concerned, you're like a 2-year-old toddler that they needed to teach everything to. Like, you're not going to go to them and say, Mom, you really should stop eating sugar. I've been eating sugar 20 years before you existed, my son. It's like, and I'm still here, and as I have less pain than you do. So,
Yeah.
And so these types of conversations, just don't, just let them live life. They know what they need to do and they not do. But that's how you do it. When it's business decisions, if both of the things are a 1, if both are 1s, then just do the 1. You're right. If it's a 1, then you were right. And the other one might have been a 1. Okay, you would have been right in that situation as well. Just do 1. Just one of the 1s. Just do the 1. Okay. But people are gray, right? In that sense, they, people tell me it's Robert, it's a chicken and egg situation. It's like, that's made up. First was the egg. I can tell you now, there were amoeba, and then there were lizards, and then eventually there were chickens. So there were eggs before there were chickens. End of story. That's it. There's no chicken and egg situation. At one point, evolution made one of those eggs come out biologically a chicken. That's it. But they hatched out of an egg. So I can tell you this is the path, right? That's it. End of story. It's not a chicken and egg situation. It's just you're making it complicated in your own brain. So this is how I look at stuff, right? So if someone says to me, like, we have a disgruntled client in one of the places where we do operations, like, okay, what made them become disgruntled? And it's like, well, they emailed us at 5 a.m. our time, local time, and they were pissed. Why did we take 4 hours to reply? It's okay. We failed to set expectations. We failed to set time zone expectations. What do you want me to say? Could you not figure that out for yourself? Right? I literally have these conversations with people because I empower them to figure out life. It's like, why are you bringing this to me? Well, how did this reach the highest level in the org chart? That's what I ask myself. Like, how did this reach me? Right? Because someone wasn't empowered to think. They were scared to think for themselves and to deal with the situation for themselves. So that's why we add, there's an amazing book called The 1 Minute Manager. Highly recommend it. Ken Blanchard wrote it. He basically teaches you how to manage in 1 minute, a day. And it's a very short book. Everyone should read it. And he basically says that the concept is very simple. If it's something you could have figured out, you should have figured it out and dealt with it. That's the entire book in one sentence, right? And so you need to set up systems to make this the standard across all of your organizations, right? We're talking with Lisa earlier. Lisa could by herself manage an entire studio. She does not need guidance at this point, probably, right? She could just manage it. Yep. Okay, perfect. Like, don't come to me with stuff. You just deal with that stuff, right? If something is, oh my God, burning, someone's going to sue us because we said something we shouldn't have, right? We called them whatever. I'm not going to say anything on the show, but we called them something and we shouldn't have. Okay, now what are we going to do, right? Because this is a new thing that people are not competent with or they're very scared of. You need to, be very careful with, right? So you deal with it, but you deal with it properly. And then once you deal with it once, you make it an SOP and you make it part of contracts and you make it part of training and so on and so forth. So you never deal with it again. So across all of these different countries and cultures and so on, you just learn to set expectations better. I'm going to give you just one funny story on this. We have business in Mexico. And I don't know if you know, but in Mexico, everyone's late all the time to almost everything, right? And so I run my brain again on ones and zeros. And so whenever someone's late, it's like there was traffic. Okay, was there traffic yesterday? Was there traffic last year? Was there traffic 2 years ago? Well, yes, Robert. I'm like, okay, and can we both agree that you failed at remembering that there is traffic in the city that you've been living in for the past 20 years, right? And so these are the level of because if there was traffic, that's why you were 40 minutes late to a 1 hour meeting. Seriously, that's what you're gonna tell me, that there was traffic? I don't deal with that. I'm sorry. It's just like I'm at the level in which I don't need to put up with that stuff. Even when I wasn't at my level, I wasn't taking this, right? And so I asked them, okay, have you ever flown with an airplane? Like, yes. About how many times? Robert, at least a dozen times. Okay, well, did you ever miss one? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, so you can be on time if you really want to. You can be on time. You just decided that our conversation today wasn't important enough for you to be here on time. Oh, Robert, you're exaggerating. No, I'm not exaggerating. You need to remember, we booked the time from 4 to 5. I'm leaving in 20 minutes. I've been waiting for you for 40. And you only need to have this conversation once, guys. Yeah. I kid you, just once, right? And so, I didn't want to be rude to people because they consider it rude. In their culture, it's normal to be late, right? So as far as I was concerned, I started telling people after a few of these conversations, I'm going to be in this restaurant between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. I am going to effectively leave at 3 because I have somewhere else to be. The sooner you arrive, the more we get to speak. And so if you manage to be there by 2, we'll have a full hour. I probably won't be there before 2, but at about 2, I'll be there and I'll leave at 3. If you'll be there between 2 to 3, we'll have a full hour. If you won't, then I'm just respectfully, I will need to leave at 3. Guess what? Everyone was there at 2. Everyone. Every time. And I wouldn't even explain. It was the message I would send to people, right? I wrote it once, an SOP. Again, this is how I function. My wife is like, how can you be so geeky? And I was like, I'm sorry. It's just like, if I have a problem in life, I either fix it or I tolerate it. I never complain about it, right? You either fix it or tolerate it, right? And that's it. And so I just fix stuff because I don't like compromises. So I just fix things in life. And business is one of those. So that's how we do. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah.
It's very high level, but this high level mentality is what actually is making everything, stick together and work.
Absolutely. That's great.
Yeah, Robert, I want to ask you about fear, which is probably not so much a black and white kind of thing because the stakes are high. We're talking, the businesses you've got 7 figures, 8 figures, etc. There's a lot riding on the deals going through and all of those sorts of things. Bigger the business, bigger the responsibility, potentially the bigger the fear. How do you and your business partner deal with fear, or do you not even feel it?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. One thing, stakes being high, interestingly enough, does not change the level of stress or things like that, or most times doesn't. Because someone that has just a job but has children and the livelihood of their children depends on that $2,000 a month job, oh my God. The level of stress and anxiety of, keeping the job, not failing, not whatever, having food to put on the table, having to work side gigs to afford a computer for your children or education or what. Oh my God, the level of stress. Horrible. Horrible. Right? Literally the same as me running a $10 million business. It does not change. It's weird, but it doesn't change. 90 something percent, or I think most people would say 85% of our fears and stresses are self-made. They're like and it has allowed us to survive. The lion that can eat you, the whatever. Like you hear a sound like, what was that? I hope it's not going to eat me. That's like our entire evolutionary thing baked into the brain. So that's why you remember earlier I was saying that people are gray. That's why people are, you cannot control this. I have days when I literally cry. And up until maybe a couple of years ago, I was giving myself a hard time. Like, I'm a Deca-Millionaire. I have all of this going for me. I'm fine. I have a family. I have friends. Like, why am I crying? Why am I so sad? Like, why am I so scared? What's wrong? Emotions. It's just it creeps up. It bubbles up. And you just deal with it. And I can have no better way of saying it. And by the way, women go through this at a completely different level. It's crazy. So sometimes my wife yells at me. And then I'm in shock for a few seconds. And what's this? What happened? And I'm sorry. I swear this happened yesterday. I told her something. And then she started crying. And I was so confused, what did I do? What did I say? Me, especially being autistic, imagine, and being what led to this outcome? And then, now I know, in most cases, it has zero to do with me. There's some internal, emotional thing. And I was just a trigger. And and now I don't even insist, because before I would tell me, why are you crying? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. And we just had the conversation. I just let her cry, whatever, hugged her. I'm sorry, it's fine, it's okay. And then maybe 15 minutes later, she told me what it was. And I was literally thinking about that the other day, but I'm a real man, so I cry inside. But I literally went through that emotional turmoil a couple of days ago. I just didn't tell her because, I don't know, I think we're programmed, when you're young, and you're raised as a guy, you don't think about this stuff, but we are raised differently. Guys, boys and girls were raised differently, and you have nothing, you cannot change it because you're young. You can't tell your parents, treat me equally. You can't have that conversation with them. You're you fall as a guy, your father's pick yourself back up. What's wrong with you? Come on, let's just go. Right? You fall as a daughter, oh my gosh, did you hurt yourself? Let me kiss you. Let me whatever. It's you can't even control it. It's just intrinsically it comes in like that. And so you're I had those same feelings, and they were probably just as strong as she had them a couple days ago. I just didn't tell her about it. I was just dealing with it in my own way. And then now she is crying about it, right? So same things, right? And you deal with these things as they come. The best advice I can give people when the fear comes, to do the work, because the fear will be there. There's no amount of psychological work you can do. At least I have not reached that level.
Yes.
Maybe there are some people that have reached nirvana, so like some yogis, whatever.
Yeah.
But those yogis are not running my businesses, right? And so it's just like, oh yeah, you're a monk and you have nothing bad, no bad thought. Okay, but if I would go in the desert and speak to no one for 40, I would probably feel the same way, or in the mountains somewhere or whatever. I would probably, but you try living my life as a monk, because I something tells me that will be off, because we are biologically designed to be fearful. And so when I have 100 fear triggers every single day, right? And I need to see, okay, is that an actual lion? Like, is it gonna eat half of my wealth? or is it just like something like I just need to deal with and just move on? So the thing I can tell people, just do the work, because if you can do the work through fear, have the conversation in spite of the fear, send the proposal in spite of the fear, send the email in spite of. If you can work in spite of, your life will be so much better.
Yeah.
Totally.
So much better.
Okay.
Because we all have bad days.
Yep.
And if you do productive things on bad days, don't make decisions.
Yep.
Don't yell at your spouse or your friends or whatever. Just keep internally. I mean, don't keep internally as in, keep internally as in realize, become self-aware that you are snappy today or you something, and then just interface with people less and tell them, I'm having an off day today, so I might speak less, but I hear you perfectly, and so just let me know what you need me for, and I will help you as much as I can.
Yeah.
That's it.
Communication.
That's the best advice I can give people.
Yeah, it's a really interesting term, to in spite of.
Yes.
Do it in spite of. Do it in spite.
Oh, absolutely.
I think there's a really good leverage point there for people.
Yes, yeah, because I think a lot of people, sort of like what you've said, is they're hoping that the fear is just going to go away. Or if the fear is there, then I'm not supposed to do it. But it's going to always exist. It's about, coming back into the self and moving forward. So on that, if let's say someone was building a business similar to Elkridge, but they're 2-3 years behind where you are now, and they asked you for a shortcut or a cheat code. Everybody likes a cheat code.
Right.
Yes, to get to where you are now, what would you tell them?
Easy. Get a partner.
Get a partner.
Work with someone. Don't do it yourself. Always.
Wow.
It's one of my rules. It's not part of the 3, because by default, notice the number 2 is, do I like the people that I'm engaged with?
Yeah.
But that also masks another rule that I have. I never go into business alone. I know myself. I'm an introvert. I like the numbers. I don't like speaking to people, so I'm not going to do well. I don't know if you guys ever played video games, or if anyone listening played video games, but I used to. I'm that generation that played video games. And so there are video games that I played. For example, there was Dota or League of Legends or Warcraft or whatever. But these were team-based games. So I would always thrive being the support character, being the tank or the healer, or someone that would help the team succeed somehow, not being the main guy. Because I didn't like being the main guy. Number 1, I don't like the fame. Like, hey, this is the main guy, blah, blah. I don't like that. But number 2, nothing makes me happier than making my team succeed. It's so weird. This has been my entire life. My entire life, I've been like that. I've been like a justice guy, right? It's like, because I was born Hungarian in Romania, and anyone looking at the history, it's very convoluted. They were friends not so long ago, and so I was bullied my entire childhood, and I had no problem. I would just get in fights. My mom would just get called in very often, so I developed very thick skin. But in that, I never allowed other people to be bullied, because I knew how that felt. And so when someone else would be bullied, I would just be so much stronger. I would just literally go in and start to fight.
Yeah.
And so that's why no one would call my mom if I would get in a fight because I was being bullied. It was obvious even for adults, he was defending himself.
Yeah.
But when someone else was being bullied, I would go in and literally pick a fight, with the guy bigger or what. I didn't care. I would not. I had an 8-year older brother. I was used to fighting someone literally twice my size,
had practice.
So no one at school had any chance, you literally had to be an adult to pick a fight with me at that point. I was so strong. No one my age could beat me. And I didn't know how, it was, and I never used it against, someone, but I would just, do it in justice sense. And so even when I started playing video games, I would always love to be the protector, to be the healer, to be the tank. And the tank is a term for the people that take the punches whilst everyone else is doing what they need to do. The tank is their front line, getting all of the blows, and they're supporting the team. And the healer is basically healing everyone up whilst, again, they're doing. So those are the roles I enjoyed most. Never liked being something else, or the type of roles. And I'm the same in business. So I get partners that are the main guys, right? And that want to be the face of the business and want to run the business and so on and so forth. And I tell them, there will be a time if you work with me where you don't need to do anything. And at that point, strategically, we will agree, what do you want to spend your time on? If your answer will be, you know what, Robert, I just want to retire. I just want to move on and do nothing. That's fine. That's perfectly acceptable. That's why we're in business to begin with, right? To build wealth and freedom. But then if you don't want that and you want to do stuff, we'll just agree on what you want to do and you'll just do that stuff, whatever, gives you energy. And so if you are like me, you find a Patrick.
Yeah.
If you're someone like Patrick, you find someone like me, right? That's basically what you do. So forget the partner. Very difficult. One of the most difficult things to choose and to keep a good partner. It's almost the same as marriage. I see it as marriage. I am very loyal to people to a fault, and I do not want to change that fault. Like if you decide to marry me, you need to do very, very bad things for me to get out of that really very bad thing. Yeah, like you literally need to commit murder intentionally. Several times maybe, so that we break that up. But otherwise, very few things you can do to for me, because I make a promise, and that promise, good or bad, I'm gonna be here. And so I reserve the right to partner with people only if they're very, very ethical, very competent, etc.
Yeah, wow. That's great.
Fantastic. Yeah, might be time for quick fire questions.
I think so.
All right, Robert, what we like to do to get to know the person behind the microphone is to ask them 10 questions. We'll fire them at you really quickly and we get you to answer them in a sentence or less. So you ready to go, Robert?
Yes.
Right, Colleen, are you ready to go?
I am.
All right, would you like to go first? Would you like me
Sure.
to?
I will take
All
it.
right.
Right. Okay. So office or work from home?
Work from home.
What was your first job?
Working the land on a farm
Yeah.
when I was like 5.
Oh, I love that. Your go-to productivity hack?
There were so many. Wait. I guess is the Pareto principle. If it need not be done, don't do it at all. Just do the most important stuff. I actually wrote a book on it. Yes, the IVD method is basically define your top priority and just do that until it's done, and then go to number 2.
Oh, I like that.
Are you an Android guy or an iPhone guy?
Android all the way. I'm an engineer.
Okay.
What's your coffee order?
I don't drink coffee. I drink tea without coffee.
Okay. If you weren't doing what you do now, what career would you choose?
I would be a writer. I love writing.
The best investment you've ever made?
Buying a very good car for my mother. Because literally a year after I bought her car, she was in an accident. The other car got completely totaled, even though they hit my mom. But because my mom had a brand new 5 out of 5 security car, nothing happened to her.
Oh, wow.
I almost cry about it to this day. It was one of the best investments I've ever made. And anyone listening to this, buy a 5 out of 5 security car. Literally, do not, you never know when an accident happens. Be ready.
Wow.
Mm.
There you go.
Yeah, wow, that's a
I
heartfelt
feel-
one. Yeah. Are you an early riser or a night owl?
I have children, so it doesn't matter.
One piece of tech that you couldn't live without.
I would say at this point it's technology itself, but it's probably my laptop.
Okay. Now, other than what you've mentioned so far in the episode, what's your book or podcast recommendation?
One of the books that has left the most positive impact on my life was The Success Principles from Jack Canfield. I recommend it to basically everyone. Very basic, super basic book, incredibly basic. Do the basics, literally. Just do the basics.
Wow.
Okay.
Love that.
All
Yeah.
right. Excited
Yeah.
into that one.
Mm.
Okay. And final question. If business truly is a game, Robert Indries, what's your definition of winning?
My definition, personally,
Mm.
of winning, the business does not need me or any one particular individual at all for its own success. It would be, I recommend, the same definition in parenting. If your children end up becoming dependent on you, you have not done a good job. I am sorry.
Yeah.
You need to help them become independent. So owning business is the same as parenting. You want your business to become self-sufficient, self-sustainable in every way, and that is the victory. If you manage to do that, that you've won at business. Basically, you can do it over and over, but if you do it once, you've won.
Yes.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, Robert, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a fascinating discussion.
So
And
great.
so many notes
Yeah.
you dropped and
Thank you
Um,
so much.
the ones and the zeros, right?
I know. I'm gonna
Yeah.
hear your voice
Yeah,
now when I'm
absolutely.
deliberating between choices.
Yeah.
Just pick one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and inspired off.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
No, so thank you so much.
Yeah. So, Robert, where can we find you online, you and your business online?
So anyone that Googles Elkridge Advisors, they're going to find us. We do very good SEO, very good marketing. You cannot miss us. Just Google my name. I have 33,000 things, that come up on Google. And so anyone just Googling my name or Elkridge Advisors can find us. We do obviously have elkridgeadvisors.com, if they want to work with us, anyone listening to the podcast, if they reach out to me personally or to Elkridge, if they mention the Business Game podcast, I will give them a 10% discount, and I promise to answer their email personally.
Wow. Thank you so much. That's so
Fantastic. Thank
kind.
you.
Thank you, Robert. I hope our listeners take you up on that. I think that's a wonderful offer. Wow. Thank you. All right. So that's all we've got time for. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to The Business Game and check out the playlist for the level of business you're currently playing.
Because every founder is somewhere on the game board, from zero all the way to $200 billion.
Choose your level, and we'll see you next time.
This is the business game.